Mas putos.
Hey, you might offend somebody out there.
What are you talking about? I'm talking about those wonderful Filipino desserts.
All right, let's go get some then.
All right, everybody. Let's wonder why Louis is hurting himself.
Shoulder just popped right before we started. So,
Oh, okay.
I thought you
No pain, no gain, Louis.
I thought you threw your back out after hearing about this list.
Really?
no.
But on this episode of Monkey Brothers Nerd Shows with Louis,
You said it was going to be different.
You lied to us.
I wasn't prepared.
And of course, Doc. Wolf found a list on what site was it?
It says comicbasics.com.
Comicbasics.com?
Yes.
Should be called Bleeding Stupid.
So,
Doc has very strong opinions about this.
yeah. So, we're going to quickly go over the list and then we can come back and argue. Because, woo buddy, this might turn into a Chango Libre. So,
This might turn into a fucking TED Talk.
at number 10, they have Bane.
And tell the people why.
We can come back to that. At number 9, we have Ultron. At number 8, Doomsday. Number 7, Carnage. 6, Venom. 5, Magneto. 4, Thanos. 3, Darkseid. 2, Loki. And 1, Joker.
I don't know if we said it, but this is overrated villains.
Yeah.
Overrated, overhyped.
So, Wolfie Doo, why don't you read that? Just that very first sentence that you mentioned just a couple of seconds ago.
Well,
For Bane, I should mention.
I will clarify, because this started because we were going to have our own discussion about this, and I was just like, let me look up some of these heroes I remember and villains, and I found this.
Okay.
In the first sentence about Bane, is Bane has never really achieved the level of popularity as, let's say, Penguin or Scarecrow.
There's a middle finger going up.
to whoever wrote this.
To which the next sentence is followed up by, the reason for this makes perfect sense. Not only is he a boring character with a boring backstory, but he also lacks any sort of depth beyond his Venom-created muscles.
And what I will say to that is what I said earlier. Your mama is boring and you're still here. So what does that say? So, the only issue that I have with this list, and we'll go through it.
Yeah.
Despite that.
Right?
Yeah.
It is just that I know we've discussed it. Literally, we were trying to do the Chango Libre for like 30 minutes before we actually started. Yeah. There's no set standard. I think we all can agree.
Yeah.
That some of the reasoning on for Bane, it's because he's boring and he's not in the comic books enough.
Yeah.
For Joker, as he's in there too much. For Loki, he's overexposed because of the MCU.
Like, Magneto is too much in the comic books.
Right.
As well, and it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, look, I'm fine if you want to sit there. Like, look, we can all agree the Joker's everywhere.
Yeah.
But the Joker is like the quintessential Batman villain.
Yeah.
And then to top it all off, if that wasn't just stupid enough, Venom and Carnage, is it the movies? Nope. Is it the comics? Nope. It's merchandising. I'm like, pick one, homeboy. You know what I'm saying? Or homegirl, whichever one it may be. I don't discriminate. But
it's like,
pick one. Pick a standard.
Like, they had more points about like Carnage and Venom, but it boiled down to the fact that they're pretty much on everything from T-shirts to stickers and
yeah. But that's like these characters are quote unquote products.
Yeah,
it's
like yes, I get it. The movies may dull down characters and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, the movies are designed to make money as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, the things that are going to draw attention are what is going to be continued to be thrown in there.
So that being said, and with that middle finger going out, let's do a rating. And here are the rules. Based on comics alone, at least in this list. Top 10 overhyped, let's just go overhyped heroes and villains. Because, let's face it, they can both be in that list,
Yeah.
So, and I don't think we're going to do any certain order, but right off the top, who can you think of?
How about, let's see, most of mine are going to be in the MCU except for the X-Men.
Okay.
I mean, I know we've previously had this discussion.
I mean, like, honestly, with the X-Men, it is literally like two factions of, like, mutants going against it, where there be...
So are we cutting the Brotherhood of Evil as one entire entity?
Well, no, like, what I'm
Okay.
talking about is, like, because you have the X-Men and then you have the Brotherhood, and it's just, like, you have villains within that. So it's not, like...
I just like that world that the X-Men are in, that it's like, I think they have probably some cool... Everybody has their little arch nemesis in there.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you brought up the point that Spider-Man has the Sinister Six.
Yeah.
Which, the name is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But then when you start breaking them down,
yeah.
You're like I said earlier, it's the Vulture. The guy is literally in some green PJs, and has a little white fur around his neck and a bald head and beaky nose.
Yeah.
And I'm like, for the life of me, I can't even tell you what he can fly. But other than that, I don't know if he, terrorizes people and he goes, ka-cha!
He was like back with the X-Men, like, there's enough diversity between the two groups that even if somebody gets used enough, like, more than others, it doesn't feel as, like...
So who are you nominating here? Like, you're saying X-Men and basically Brotherhood of Evil. So who are you nominating as overhyped here?
Spider-Man.
What Doc was talking about, like, how most of his stuff was coming from, like, MCU except for X-Men. I was saying, like, even though, like, it's kind of homogenous, there's enough breakdown that even, like, if you have a lot of stuff with Wolverine and Magneto, it doesn't feel the same level.
Yeah. So Doc is nominating Spider-Man. So why Spider-Man?
So I think his best villains are Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah.
Visually. And I like the Rhino. I've told you he looks like the unicorn of Juggernauts. He just has that same... But I don't know why. I've always liked the Rhino.
Which I never actually thought about, but Juggernaut and the Rhino are pretty much essentially the same character.
Right. But, I mean, other than that, I mean, I like Kraven the Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who is it? I know he has Electro. I mean, the guy has a big yellow star.
Oh, yeah.
In the comic books, he has a big yellow star, as a costume over his head, over his face. And I'm like, could have just had a mask with a little yellow star, make it look like a luchador, a little bit cooler version. But again, knowing how old these characters are, the cheesiness of certain things. But I'm like, seriously, man? I mean, Spider-Man's gone through so many costumes. Hell, there's a Spider-Man 2099. There's a Miles Morales Spider-Man. I mean, you have so many different looks for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But some of the villains still got the same cheesy-ass pajamas.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to really dig those villains just because you're like, other than the ones I named, and that's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
Name me a villain that you think, Doc Ock, and the guy has, incredibly smart, but he wasn't smart enough to avoid the accident that caused him to get, metal tentacles, grafted onto his skin.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's one of those things. It's a combo.
Yeah. So,
who are you nominating?
Honestly, I'm gonna have to nominate, like, I don't know if you're gonna count it as the same thing here. Because it's kind of coming from, and I kind of have to agree. Well, I have to agree up to a certain point because basically Venom before the new the King in Black arc that's going on right now,
mm-hmm.
or maybe it just ended, I think. But before that was kind of like a character. Like he would have his ups and downs, but I think like it's like they kind of like it seemed like they wanted to do something with him, and each time they like they did the Flash Thompson where he's Agent Venom. Mm-hmm. That was really cool arc.
Yeah,
and then they made him turn back around and like just be regular Venom again. It's like
Eddie Brock Venom.
Yeah, and it's like it kind of goes into this thing where it's like you're making forward progress with a character story, and then you're like, oh no, we need to bring back the fan favorite. And so it's like it's kind of like one step forward, two steps backwards. One step forward, two steps backwards.
And I will agree that the new story, the King in Black, I really enjoyed that story, especially when they added the dynamic with his son being like, realistically the one that Noel, the King in Black, was afraid of.
Yeah.
So because he could destroy the symbiotes,
Yeah.
Or turn them into whatever you wanted. So I thought that was pretty cool, And then, of course, there's the redemption part at the end of that storyline. But so, I can agree with that. I mean, it's a funny thing though, because I can't. Most of the people that I would say are going to be in the MCU, just because, again, we've had this discussion before. Like a lot of the people that they promoted in the movies were the people that they had control over, because the X-Men were, sold off to Fox and et cetera,
Yeah.
Fantastic Four was at Columbia, Hulk was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they didn't have the rights to those characters. So you had to go with some of these other characters that I'm like, they have shitty ass villains.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Stark.
Yeah. Which, as far as I know, Tony Stark only has one main villain.
Alcohol.
I mean,
and women.
I was going to say the Mandarin, but I mean, you're not wrong. So, Wolf, who are you going to nominate?
I'm not going to hit. To me, I've never liked this character.
Okay.
Period.
Okay.
Just, and that's kind of why I'm putting them as overrated.
Mm-hmm.
Cap.
Captain America?
Yeah. Huh? There are some cool stories that involve the character and things like that, and he, as we said, he does have Red Skull and Baron Zemo, but even with Baron Zemo, it's
yeah,
it's not that much. It's I just never gotten any reason of why the appeal behind him is, and I get whenever he was created and stuff like that, it was at the height of World War II.
Oh yeah,
and it was that huge swell of patriotism, but after that, I was just never sure about this character. Was this so lauded over as some people seem to think?
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't really get too much into Cap until the first Civil War arc, and that's because that was freaking badass. Because it's you would think he would take the side of the United States Mutant Registration Act or whatever, but he's no, this isn't instead of taking the side of the good old USA, he's no, this is wrong.
I do the stories that involve him of not necessarily being the Boy Scout.
Yeah,
I do love those, but I just feel
yeah,
we kind of talked about it where they just keep pushing Wonder Woman towards Superman because it's the easy thing.
Yeah,
I feel whenever they just fall into oh, it's easy to make him the Boy Scout.
Yeah,
I just
that is I that's why like I said, I like Cap, but and I'm not disagreeing with you because I don't think they use a lot of their characters to their full potential.
They don't really develop. They don't give a lot of their characters depth. Maybe is a better way.
Yeah.
Hell, I'll even say it. I mean, in the comic books, Tony Stark being an alcoholic. I mean, that to me was a lot more depth than they did with a lot of other characters.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
it'd be a different thing if if you had Cap hand over the mantle properly and then maybe still be a hero, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But kind of do a thing where he's under his own thing and he goes off somewhere else.
He's done that before.
Well, I mean, in more in more of a situation where you still bring him within the fold of the team, and he's not trying to sit there and come back and be Cap.
He's done that before.
You know what
I mean? He was Nomad.
Well, I'm not.
Which I'm not saying is the greatest superhero name ever.
I'm not talking about within that thing. I'm talking about as being as a front runner involved, without necessarily being oh look,
without there being a reason why he gave up the mantle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get that.
I'm saying like it being the thing of like him progressing.
Yeah.
And not just like, oh, well, here's Cap.
Yeah. Which I'm wondering, have they brought back regular Captain America already, or is he still Old Man Cap?
No, they brought him back.
Oh, okay.
Because the reason he gave up the mantle and Falcon became Captain America, I think it was like his super serum,
super soldier serum.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I think something had happened, and he became Old Man Cap.
Yeah.
So he couldn't be Captain America, so that's why he gave up the mantle.
Yeah.
But of course, it being the comic books, we fixed that.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that irritates me the most in comics is when you get a story like that. It's like, oh look, we fixed it. And it's like, nah.
Which I understand. You can't kill off certain characters, but like for example, I actually don't like the way they handled the handoff for the Captain America name in that story arc, because it was just like I don't want to keep on mentioning the cinematic universe because we're not talking about that, but they handled it much better in that.
I agree. I was going to bring up the same point that with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they did a better job of it.
Yeah,
and I think part of it is, I mean, it's hard not to mention it because they did a better job because I think the reality of it, they learned from the mistakes that they made in the comic books.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kudos to them because, I mean, like I said, it's a very weird thing that the comic books themselves in the MCU, in the Marvel Universe, I was not an Iron Man fan, or same thing with Thor, or, again, it had a lot more to do with depth for me. But then it's like they corrected that in the movies.
In the MCU. Yeah.
I mean, they literally have a shorter history, so again, they made the stories where, I mean, they're all the same cookie cutter stories.
Yeah.
But they made it interesting, like I'm always going to remember how the whole grab Loki, and he, used him like a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the kind of thing because they have like decades to go through and just like even with the arcs in those, like, okay, let's cut out that bit that makes no damn sense.
But right quick, the biggest thing is that the cinematic universe can take its time to develop these characters. Because, let's face it, like, if you're reading panel after panel of Captain America, just basically, like, not fighting anything, then you're just like, okay, this is kind of boring,
Yeah.
Like, I guess in comic book format, the heroes need to constantly be fighting something.
Yeah, you have 30 pages and...
Yeah, if, like, 29 of those pages are, like, Captain America going about, going to go get milk from the store.
Oh, gotta go pick up my Starbucks. Damn it, I forgot the whip.
I know. Let me go back, get my $2.15 back.
So, I mean, and like I said, it's one of those things that they did a really good job in the movies.
Yeah.
So, like I said, hey, great, glad they fixed that in that sense. But, I think in the comic book, I don't know. I mean, like I said, other than the X-Men, it was hard for me to sit there and be like, hey, I'm going to read an Iron Man comic. No, I don't think so. The villains for Cap, Red Skull.
Yeah.
It's like iconic villain, like really good look. It sticks in your head. But then...
I was disappointed how they used him in the MCU, though. But whatever. I mean, MCU, different conversation.
Here's an interesting note. So, on Ultron, the author of that article mentioned that the Avengers don't have a great list of villains.
They don't.
To which we all agree. However, Joker's number one because he's constantly in Batman books. Like, the interesting thing, like, we already said that they didn't really seem to have a structure. Where it's like, some of, like, not saying Red Skull's overrated or anything like that, but, like, we can name maybe one villain that, like, each of the big three for the MCU that they pushed has. And they were plastered over it a lot.
I mean, the biggest thing with that list, like I said, there's no standard. I mean,
like that's the thing is like
you call one character overhyped because the character is not included in a lot of stories, but then the other character you're saying is overhyped because he's all over the stories. And I'm like, so which one is it?
Yeah, it's like, that's the thing. Because it's like, Joker's in there because he's overexposed, but like, there's pretty much only a few villains for any one of the Marvel guys to fight, and they're going to be in most of the stories.
Yeah.
Now, if they were talking about like currently in the comic books, so like movies, they have like big events that are like year-long story arcs or however long story arcs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one that just ended was the Joker War with Batman. So if they're talking about currently, so he is going to be overexposed because it was called the Joker War. You can't have a Joker War story arc without the Joker. I mean, it involved other characters, but I'm like,
it's going to be Batman goes to get milk. Bat milk. He's just 20 panels of him milking little bat nipples. He's like,
clean up that bat guano. But I mean, again, like I said, there's no standard. And like I said, I actually really dig Bane, for all the reasons we discussed last time. But more than anything else, I like the fact that DC does certain things that I think Marvel fails at. I mean, obviously not the movies, because we know, they make $5 trillion versus DCU's, sometimes pathetic attempt to make movies. But
yeah,
I mean, one thing I do think that I like that they do better is when they come up creatively with a new character. Bane, that was awesome to me. Of course, the biggest, but then recent memory, of course, was Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Bane was a new character. And then recently they did Punchline, the Joker's new girlfriend.
Yeah.
So it's always like those type of things where they do a better job of coming up creatively with new characters.
Yeah. Because I've said it before, I don't know if I said it in an episode. I mean, the good guys are only as interesting as their bad guys.
Yes.
Because, I mean, honestly, Captain America without Nazis, you have a super soldier that has nothing to fight.
There's a threat of Nazis is always present.
Yeah. Unfortunately. I think a bit too real, but...
I can just picture him outside, just...
You are not... I mean, real life Captain America would have a field day nowadays, but, he's like, all right, plenty of things to punch. I may be old, but here I go.
Quick, stop that scene now, old man. He's punching people.
Yeah, I mean, now I will say the one thing with Magneto, he is ever present in the comics, but he's a lot cooler in the comic books.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I feel like the X-Men, like, is diverse enough, because, like, you have a whole cast of heroes, and you have a whole cast of villains to play with, that even with Magneto being, like, the brains behind something, it doesn't really mess things up that much.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the X-Men world, to me, is just, you have Magneto, and people focus on Magneto, but the reality is you have so many different villains. You have it's so diverse, just like every one of the X-Men, there's just so many, of course you have like Wolverine and Sabretooth.
Yeah.
It's almost like everybody has their own arch enemy, that it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So it's always interesting to me. And then of course the storylines that they've done, oh no, they did so-and-so, and now it's like, X-Men Age of Apocalypse, which is one of my favorite stories ever, and everything's flipped, and like, Apocalypse has his two sons, Havoc and Cyclops, and, all kinds of stuff where like, but it's interesting, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It draws you in, and you're like, damn, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So in other words, that's what, in comic book land, to me, that's the one title that I always keep make it interesting. That, like, okay, cool, I can read the next one comic, Whereas, I ain't picking up that Captain America.
Yeah, I can agree. Just like I said, very occasionally there's a Captain America storyline, but
you said Civil War was a really good story, but it was more of a MCU universe type story.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the Hulk stories that they have, like right now, World War Hulk, Planet Hulk, And even now, Immortal Hulk, where it's kind of more horror-ish in a way.
Oh, that's right. I was like, I don't remember Immortal Hulk. I thought that was the, I forgot his name, but, the other Hulk that they came out with recently, the smart Asian kid that turns into the Hulk.
Oh, Amadeus Cho.
I just remember it was A Cho.
Yeah, and that was
That was about to say that.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah. The Joker.
No, I'm talking about Amadeus Cho as the Hulk, and I'm like...
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, the joke was terrible, too. I'm not going to, hype myself up here, but...
You're right.
Doug, I wanted your opinion, because we kind of touched on it when we saw the list. But Doomsday and Darkseid.
So...
Because
we're just talking about comic books. No and no. And I would say Darkseid is not always present as a big bad in the comics.
Yeah.
That's one. And two,
Doomsday was only really a threat once. And
well, I mean, it's a threat, but it sticks out because the story killed Superman.
Yeah. But it was only that one time.
He's come back several times, but, it's one of those where, it's never really the same.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, it made impact, where it's because, I always remember the cover where it's it looked like Superman's cape was tattered on a pole.
I think you have that one.
Yeah, and it's
somewhere.
Yeah, so it's who doesn't? Okay, I remember that because I'm old, right? But it's an iconic cover, right? Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things, But that's why, to me, you're gonna put them over. I can understand by their standards. Okay, not really in the MCU, yes, but considering, Darkseid wasn't really in those movies until the revelation he was big bad,
Yeah.
At the end, okay. And even then, not really. Steppenwolf was pretty much carried that movie. Well, I won't say carried, but he was the big bad in the movie.
Yeah.
And was it Batman versus Superman? And even then he didn't look like the same. He looked like a big turd.
We were talking about it slightly. They put them on there because of their sheer amount of power, and they're unrivaled. I'm like, but they're literally Superman. Who's it gonna fight? A mailman?
Yep. Yeah. But like I just said though, Doomsday was really only a threat the first time he appeared.
Yeah.
It seems like every time he's appeared recently, Superman's like, oh yeah, pow, punch you into space. Don't have to deal with you for another few years. And then, same thing.
That's how you solve your problems. Space.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how Superman does it. Then, Darkseid kind of, he's falling into that same category of he appears every once in a while. And, there's a big build up to him in the comics. And you're like, oh no, it's Darkseid. And then there's a big fight between him and Superman. And then he's like, all right, I will retreat for now. Nyaka, nyaka, nyaka.
Yeah, realistically,
tactical events to the rear.
It's one of those things where, with Superman characters, I don't know, I would say Superman is overpowered. But I've never been really a Superman person other than when I was a kid.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So, but like you said, who is Superman going to fight?
Yeah. I think the most interesting Superman storyline recently has been where he lost his powers. And he was just wearing that T-shirt that had the Superman symbol on it.
Yeah.
And he was kind of considered a bad guy. Remember that?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, that was kind of a stupid iteration of.
I thought it was more interesting that he's been in a while. Mostly because it's he's still actually fighting for good. So it's because there's that, the whole he's just this, he's a Boy Scout because he's basically invulnerable. So it kind of gave him a different level of okay, even without his superpowers, he's still trying to be good,
And my whole point, it's kind of I look at him the same way that I look at Tony Stark, and it was really brought up. I thought it was funny in the MCU, where, Captain America knew how to fight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the whole, yeah.
But without his armor, Tony Stark was like, "So, buddy." Yeah. And I think it's the same thing with Superman. Like, okay, so without your superpowers, you can get your ass kicked.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly in that storyline, he got his ass handed to him plenty of times.
I know. It's like,
but,
if I was one of the bad guys, I'd be like, oh yeah, don't need kryptonite for this.
Time to go to the shocker.
Talk about, right?
And I'm not talking about.
Yeah. Talk about, it's bad when even Polka Dot Man can handle your ass. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I like, it's kind of like why I'm like, okay, you're a big solar battery. Really, you've been handed every power known to man,
Yeah.
Or not really known to man, I guess, but in the comic book world.
Golden Age Superman had every power. He's like, that USB drive, I could read it with my X-ray vision. It's like, yeah, like, I don't know how this works, but.
Talk about technology. It must be evil.
Tax returns 1992.
Yeah, like I said, it's like, it's almost as bad as like and campy as the old school Batman's where like he had like everything in his utility belt. Yeah. Bat condoms, bat chocolate bars, bat
butt plugs.
Yeah, like
bat chocolate.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell?
That's actually a thing.
Yeah, I know, I've seen it.
Okay.
It's like, what don't you have in there, How about a pair of good handcuffs that the Joker can't escape from?
Not the fuzzy ones you keep putting Catwoman in.
Wrong pocket.
But, yeah, needless to say, I'm like, it's one of those things where, like I said, and then there was a couple of years ago where they had Superman had like this new power, like there was like a big solar flare.
Oh.
Yeah, but it left him drained for like 24 hours. Then I'm like, so it's like he had like a super orgasm of his powers.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it actually can't be worse than the Dark Knight version of Superman, where he can absorb the solar energy from the plant life around him.
Yeah.
That was cheesy and yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those things to me. I was like, okay, so this guy has all these other powers, but now you're going to give him this one power. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, and this is like the way that the difference between the way they write Superman versus Batman. So one of the comic books, in the last couple of years, Superman gave Batman, kryptonite. I think it was like platinum or some kind of kryptonite that was a different color. And what it did was it allowed, all you had to do was touch it one time and it would give you all of the same powers as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave it to Batman and he was like, pretty much like, hey, haven't you ever wondered if you were enough? Well, now you don't have to wonder. You can have all of my powers, and you will never have to wonder if you're ever going to be enough. So Batman kept it in his little pouch, the iron shoulder pouch or whatever. And then he didn't use it. He wound up giving it to a new character called Gotham Girl.
Interesting.
And so that she could be
superpower.
And I was like, and that is the reason why I like Batman.
Yeah.
I like the way they write Batman because it's kind of like getting all the superpowers to him would be taking the easy way.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you want to be the pinnacle of human perfection.
Yeah.
Or maybe not perfection, but...
You might as well be, to be honest.
Well, yeah. But I mean, considering that you're doing all this training and you dress up in a bat suit, so that would eliminate the perfection part.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like superhero-wise, you're not taking the easy way out, even when it's handed to you.
Which, going into this, can turn into a whole different conversation. So I'll just keep it short. I've always found the ridiculousness of, any one character, Batman or Iron Man, being proficient in all forms of whatever the fuck. Like Batman's proficient in all forms of kung fu or martial arts, and it's like, oh yeah, I studied under this legendary teacher for 10 years, and this other guy for 10 years, and this other guy for 10 years. And it's like, dude, how old are you? Like, And then, you have Tony Stark on the opposite end. He's like, oh yeah, he's a master, of all engineering, disciplines and whatnot. And you're like, so you're like
30 when you first started being Batman.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even then, it's funny, like you said that, he's proficient in all these martial arts or whatever, right? And yet he's still not the best.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, that it's like, you're right. It's a little plot hole, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
But it's like, because Lady Shiva is actually technically better
than Batman.
Yeah. And in hand-to-hand combat. And it's, I guess she's the one that helped him when he got his back broken,
Yeah.
Nobody knew that she was a surgeon or anything like that. But no, but I mean, I always like that it's like,
it's that kung fu magic.
It's like, you're really, really good, but you're not the best. And it's like, I always think that's cool. Like, it's like, and that's why, to last week's argument, Wonder Woman should be with Batman.
Yeah.
DC, make that happen.
Give you the bat pole.
Yeah.
All right, DC. Wolf wants the bat pole.
I said give you the bat pole, not give me.
Yeah, I ain't taking no bat pole, man.
Oh, yeah, alrighty. That's a whole different kind of Chango.
So, I think this has pretty much turned into a Chango Libre. So, and I'm pretty sure we have a whole lot more stuff to talk about. But that'll come in the next episode. So, for now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
Punch that notification bell.
Same one again.